Welcome back, history fans! This week we're jumping into episode 45 of the England series. Okay, so just a quick note here before we get started. I tried to use a different microphone and, well, let's just say I'm not that happy with it. So yeah, if you're wondering why the audio is different, that's why. Sorry about that. So, fall 1648 found Parliament in the midst of yet another attempt at reasoning with the king. And if you've wearied of hearing of all this political nonsense, surely more weary were many of the men involved in it. Charles was absolutely unreasonable. He would agree to almost nothing. The stubborn pride that he had forever cherished showed no signs of abating. He would be king, and he would have his way. Yet, for all his implacability, the king was enjoying a lighter imprisonment at the time. Upon his promise not to try to escape, he had been allowed to stay in the town of Newport on the little Isle of Wight, instead of being locked up in Carisbrooke Castle like before. Cromwell, Fairfax, and the other independent army officers were practically outraged at the fact that Parliament was even still considering allowing the king back on the throne. They had been patient. They had tried to be reasonable. But after this second bout of civil war, they were done. Charles had clearly instigated the whole thing, started another whole round of pointless bloodshed, just for his own personal ends. The man of blood the army had come to call Charles, and never again would they be able to accept him as their king. Fairfax drew up one last paper, named the Remonstrance. Wait, Remonstrance? Remonstrance? Hold on a minute.
Remonstrance. Remonstrance.
Okay, so I stand corrected. It's Remonstrance. Or, if you're British, Remonstrance, which I kind of like the second one better because it sounds less monsterish, but, anyway. Basically, Remonstrance just means it's a strong request that someone not do something. The Remonstrance said Charles should be forced to step down as king, and a new king should be elected in his place. The army officers were still discussing the paper when a shocking discovery was made. The king had been caught writing secret letters to his friends, and these letters said that the false peace dealings with Parliament were just a cover story to get him a better opportunity to escape. This, of course, further justified the army's mistrust of the king, and they went ahead and voted to present the Remonstrance to Parliament. While waiting for Parliament to hold a vote on this, Fairfax prepared to take drastic action. He wasn't going to take no for an answer. Be it through peace or violence, the independents were going to have their way this time. First, Fairfax moved King Charles back to the mainland of England, to Hurst Castle. Then, the general moved his personal headquarters to Whitehall Palace, just up the street from Westminster Hall, where Parliament met. And finally, he stationed troops at several key points all over London. All was set for the crucial moment. At last, December 5th came, the date for Parliament to vote on the army's remonstrance. Opinions were divided, but the majority cast in negative. They were going to keep talking to the king. But Fairfax was ready at the signal. The very next morning, when the members of Parliament came to the great doors of Westminster, they found Colonel Thomas Pride standing there waiting for them. A long list was in Pride's hand, a list of all the members who had shown any signs of sympathy to the king or Presbyterians. And beside the colonel, a regiment of stern cavalry in full battle array. One by one, the members tried to enter the hall. Some were allowed inside, but if a man's name was on Pride's list, he was stopped. Several of those stopped were even rounded up and imprisoned in a nearby inn. People were in shock. Such a scene had never been seen in England before. By the end of the day, Pride's Purge, as it came to be known, was complete. Out of the 470 members of Parliament, only 83 were left. The army had officially taken over the government. With the power now resting entirely in their hands, this new little pro-army parliament, sometimes called the Rump Parliament, set at once to move against the king. In January, the House of Commons officially accused Charles of treason and called for a trial. But the House of Lords, which had not been purged by Pride, objected to the charges. No, they argued, it can't be all as bad as that. Surely the king has not committed treason. And the 3 chief judges of England refused to try the king. These judges said that the accusation did not count, because the whole body of Parliament had not agreed on it. They said the army was being unfair, and had acted unlawfully by getting rid of all the men who didn't agree with them. But this was speaking reason to men who wanted no reason. The Rump Parliament simply went over the judges' heads and right past the House of Lords. They drew up a bill for their own court, and passed it without the permission of the king, which was against the laws of England at the time. Thus was the High Court of Justice born. 135 men were appointed to take part in Charles' trial in this new court, but out of all those men, only 68 actually attended, for even they were taken aback at the illegal manner in which this justice was to be served. Fairfax, too, was appalled at what his officers were doing. He certainly thought with the rest of them that the king should be punished, but he hadn't imagined things getting this heated. But there was little the general could do. More and more his men were following after Cromwell, who was a man of a much more passionate nature and better skilled at politics than he.